Someday, like when this is huge, some guy's gonna hear it and be like, "Oh, that's me." Hey, everybody, welcome to another. Oh God, I don't even know. I don't have like a clever name, but Nebraskan episode of Small Town Failing Podcast. I am your host, Joe.
Yeah.
Joined this episode by first time guest, and I am so excited. Similar to Caitlin Randall, who has been on a few episodes. Michelle and I worked together in a previous life, and she is honestly, and I don't say this to kind of stoke your ego or whatever it is, but like you and a few other people that we worked together were the ones that kind of like really got me pissed off when people like knocked millennials, right? Like, because everyone,
Oh
like,
my
yeah,
God.
it's true because
Thank you.
everybody had this, like, it was definitely kind of when we started working together. I think you were like a junior art director or like kind of
I
fresh
was
out of
young.
college. And
Yeah.
it was definitely around the time where like all the boomers and even people like in my generation were like, oh, millennials don't know what they're doing, blah, blah, blah. But like, you all were the ones that were like, yeah, I'll work weekends. Like, yeah, I'll work on this shitty assignment because I just
Yeah.
wanted experience to do it. And like, blew me away. Like you and, I don't want to use like full names, but like Jen and Mish, like you all busted your
Totally.
ass. And it really like, after that,
We had passion.
exactly. And like, a lot of the younger people that I work with now that are kind of fresh out of college are like the same way. They're like, yeah, I know a bunch of people don't want to work on this stuff, but like I'll do it because I want the experience and I want to, just build my portfolio. And I always appreciated that. And like honestly, since then I've always been like, you know what, the millennials, they're good people. All right. Like,
Oh my God. Thank
of
you.
course.
That's so amazing.
But so anyway, I've rambled. So we worked together at an advertising agency. And when I kind of started this podcast, like Caitlin was definitely one that I kind of want to connect with. And then you as well, because like we haven't worked together in probably like 6 or 7 years, but like we've always followed each other on Instagram and Twitter. And like, and I hope you don't take offense to this, but like you're batshit crazy with some of this stuff. Like, and I find it fascinating. Like,
I am so annoying. I think that's the only way to say it. But it's like, I know I have a really hard time because I just don't take it that
Yes,
seriously. And I think a
exactly.
lot of people take their social handles so seriously. And it's so perfect, and I'm just like, "That's not human
hmm
beings, like, we're not like that. We are annoying, and we are crazy," and, like, I've got a lot to
I
say. I've never been able to shut
a
up.
lot of times, like, because you are constantly tweeting stuff, and like I will read
I
it.
know. Okay, well, I did get laid off. I have not
That's true.
nothing else to
Well, even
do.
when you were working, I feel like, and like I read it all, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on here. Like, is it serious? Is it not? And like,
This is good
no,
feedback,
my God, but
honestly.
and I do, and when I say like, I hope you don't take offense because I don't mean it like an offensive way at all. Like, I find it like
Oh,
fascinating, and it's great, and I appreciate that.
I've
Like, you're kind of on there doing your
I've
thing.
gotten this yeah, I've gotten this before. It's, It's the I'm trying to find ways to make it less confusing for people
But
because I
why? You know?
No, no, because it is. It's like I have like but I do have like all these different like avenues and like things that I'm interested in and nobody I know is interested in all of those things. So I am just like I'm shouting at like 5 different
hmm
abysses all the time, you
I
know?
get that.
It's not just one void, it's all of them.
A 45-year-old white male doing a podcast about Hallmark movies can 100% understand. Like,
Honestly, we were meant to do this together.
speaking of, so I know nothing about your history with like Hallmark or Lifetime or any of these movies. Are you a fan? Have you watched them? Was this kind of your first foray into it?
Not my first foray, but yeah, I've definitely binge watched Lifetime movies.
Mhm.
I've sat, the probably more Lifetime than Hallmark, but they're pretty
Yeah.
similar. I just the titles always got me when I was scrolling on cable TV, like looking at the guide. Like you just were like, it's like sugar
Yeah.
daddies or like the titles were always just like so in they like grabbed my
Yep.
attention and then you watch the movie and you're like this plot line could have been 5 minutes
Oh,
of
it's
a real
insane. Like,
movie.
we've done a bunch I always say we, but, like, I've done a bunch of, like, Lifetime, like, the more stabby ones on this too, and it's like,
Yeah.
they're just as batshit, and, like, I think the thing when you talk about the titles, like, Hallmark, when I first started doing this, my Leslie and I have watched, like, a ton of these, and I tried to go back and, like, look at, like, which ones I have watched. I can't tell. Like, 1, the posters are all the same,
They
and
blur
2, like,
together.
the titles are
Yeah.
just so, like, kind of bleed into one. I think we normally, from like a Lifetime standpoint, we 100% do the same thing where it's like trapped by my sugar daddy and stuff like that. It's like, all right, that sounds crazy. But then the light, like the more
Yeah.
Hallmarky ones, and like Lifetime does a lot of Christmas ones too. But like we just go by like the star. Like if it's someone we know, like that's where we jump into.
Or do you know people in Hallmark movies?
No, well, a lot of
I mean, like, are the actors recognizable?
well, yeah, like Jodie Sweetin from
Some
Full
of
House.
them.
It's a lot of shows that I
Mm,
grew up with that these, have now kind
got
of
it.
jumped into. Probably maybe a little before your time. Like, did you watch Full House? Are you familiar with the Full House? All right.
Yes.
So,
Yes, I would definitely recognize her.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But like her Jodie Sweetin was well, DJ Tanner was Candace Cameron Bure. And then her sister Jodie Sweetin, what was her? I don't remember. Stephanie. So she's done a bunch of these too.
Oh,
And then like Lacey Chambert or whatever her name is from like Mean Girls, like it's
okay.
it's never like,
Yeah.
Reese Witherspoon isn't jumping over into Hallmark, but like there's
No.
like, oh, that person from that thing.
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking about that as I was watching the movie. I was like, are these aspiring, like, big time actors that just end up in Hallmark movies? Or, like,
I didn't
what
know
is the
anybody in this thing, so this is not a great
yeah,
example
okay.
of that. And I
Yeah.
think we should say Welcome to Valentine is the movie that we're discussing today, and it just premiered on
Yes.
Hallmark this past weekend. They're kind of doing a full like Valentine's Day is like come and gone, but like Hallmark is just doubling down. And the interesting thing about this movie is I was thinking about it like halfway through. This 100% could have been like just one of their Christmas movies also. And I feel like at certain
Oh,
point
yeah.
may have been the script, and they're just like, well, we need Valentine's movies. So like just swap Valentine's Day with Christmas and like let's go with this.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't bring myself to Google it, but, like, is Valentine, Nebraska the concept of the movie or a real town?
It's not. I can't imagine it is. I mean, I'll do it right now. But like 9 times out of 10, these movies don't take place in real towns. And most of them are filmed
So
in
that was just
Canada.
the yeah.
Yeah. But I
But that was just, like, the concept of the movie was Valentine,
oh wait,
Nebraska.
I stand corrected. There is a Valentine, Nebraska. I'll be honest, from
Okay.
the like initial photos that pop up, doesn't look like it really mirrors the town we have in this movie.
Okay. Okay.
Like I see a
Okay.
lot of closed down like storefronts. Um but we'll see, maybe.
Yeah.
But it is interesting.
Yeah.
So it makes so we can kind of dive right in. Like the movie is Welcome to Valentine. It focuses on a an artist living in New York City who had kind of moved from Valentine, Nebraska to find her way and become this famous artist. And then, as most like actors and artists do when they're pursuing that New York, there's waiters, they're waitresses. Um, her,
Side hustles.
yeah, like her and her friend. So Olivia is the oh god, I'm looking at the names and I got confused of like the actress versus the actual person. But Olivia is our main character, and she is roommates with
Okay.
Tess, I think, who is an actress. And we kind of kick off with Tess, saying that she has landed this big role in a new like show where she's going to be the lead and has to move to Chicago. Olivia, her art career is not going great, but they're working at this function that evening where like this famous art buyer who owns like a studio is going to be there. And like right off the bat, Olivia and Tess are not great at their jobs. Like they're, like in no way trying to like maintain these careers that they've kind of put out for them, right?
I mean, how could Olivia? Her mental health is, like, so bad. You said her art career was bad, but, like, this girl is on the edge
She's
of,
yeah.
like, she every She got so irritated by everything, like, it was making me anxious. I
Right?
was like, "It's okay."
Like, and she spends the entire, like, event where she's supposed to be working trying to, like, track down what is it? Hollander, I think is her last name, like, the who owns
Yeah.
the gallery or whatever, and it's like, "You're working." Like, maybe, like,
Yeah.
put some effort into it, and, like, her boss is kind of looming, and, like, I think she gets strike 1 because she's on her phone, and again, totally reasonable, like, I don't blame her boss at all, and then, like, I forget, like, what the second one is, but eventually, she meets this guy at this event who is, George, our kind of love interest, and the whole thing is what, like, a 40 under 40 for some group,
Yes,
I didn't
yeah.
fully understand. George turns out to be Tess's, like, 3rd
Cousin.
cousin removed or
Yeah.
something, like, she rattles off whatever the hell it is, and it's just like, who remembers that? And him and Olivia have this conversation and kinda go back and forth, and they're snarky with each other. He's kinda being a dick, ends up, like, knocking over the tray of, like, what was it, like, cucumber soup or something ridiculous?
It was mushroom
Mushroom
soup, and
soup,
to
there
your
we go.
point of being not great at her job, like, also not great at, like, selling herself, like,
No.
she was carrying a tray of soup when she decided to approach the art buyer. I was like, "Put the tray down, like, really pitch yourself."
Or at least if you're gonna half-ass your job, just, like, don't even bother to pretend you're trying, right? Like, put it down
Well,
and just
yeah, just
walk up to her.
that's what I'm saying, like, go all in on, like, you're gonna intro yourself to her, put down the mushroom soup.
Exactly.
Because
Because
what ended up
well,
happening?
she walks up and, like, kinda rambles, and the woman like, tries to show her her art, like, at this thing, and the woman's like, "What the fuck are you doing?" Like, "No, like, give me my goddamn soup."
Yeah,
And then George is kind of, like, butting in, ends up they both end up, like, kinda knocking over the soup, it goes all over Hollander, things go to hell, and Olivia gets shit canned, like, there on the spot. The kind
truly.
of backdrop is Tess is moving to Chicago. Olivia usually goes home to Valentine, Nebraska, but because it's almost Valentine's Day, like, do flights and hotels, like, do their rates spike around Valentine's Day? Because they kind of made this point
That's
that
a good
Olivia couldn't
question.
afford to fly back because the flights were so expensive. But, like, I don't know if that's a
I
thing.
th I think she was just no, I think she was just poor
Yeah. Well,
and
yeah.
could never purchase a ticket, and
Mm,
then they got so expensive, I don't know.
yeah. But it just, the
It's a
way
Hallmark movie, we don't need all the answers.
well, the way that they were selling was like, "Oh, the holidays, like, flights are so expensive
I
around the
know.
holidays," and it's like a Tuesday, all right? Like, this isn't a thing.
Yeah,
Um
yeah.
um,
The whole thing was theatrical, though.
it was very, like, and again, that's why it kind of in my head, I kept thinking, like, "Was this just a Christmas movie that they swapped Valentine's Day for?" Because, like, that would
Yeah,
make sense, like, Christmas would be very
yeah,
expensive to fly home, but, like, this just didn't track with me. Um,
but the concept was Valentine, Nebraska.
well,
It
yeah,
had to be
exactly.
Valentine's Day, it could be
And
no other.
Olivia did talk just like everyone is supposed to know where the fuck Valentine, Nebraska is, right? Like, George asks where she's
She
from.
really
She's
did.
like, Valentine. And like, no, like, doesn't mention Nebraska. It's just like, oh, you've never heard?
Yeah,
Which,
literally.
which
I
I
thought that
thought
was
was,
strange.
yeah, like a little like ballsy. And George is just like, I don't know what
Yeah.
the fuck you're talking about. So spills the soup, gets fired. George feels bad because, for all intents and purposes, this was George's fault. Like, he, like, pretty much like almost tackled her, and they like tried to like
Yeah,
make it look silly, but like it was a lot, that whole thing.
yeah, I
Mhm.
agree. I feel like he just kinda got off free.
He did, yeah. Well, he the next day, like, he apologizes. The test comes up with this idea that, like, since George now has to fly or drive like all the way out to California, I think, to like become the new
Why did he have to
CEO.
drive?
I don't, well, because he loves his car, Big Red. I assume that, like,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. That detail of the movie, the road trip, did not sit well with me because I've just done that cross country road
Mm-mm.
trip, and that is not what a cross country road trip looks like or feels like. You would never drive a car like that. He doesn't let them drink or eat in the
Drink or
car.
eat in the car. And on top of that, so the whole concept is that, like, Tess and Olivia are giving up their apartment. They both fit their
Yeah.
entire belongings into, like, small suitcase, which really felt like a cry for help.
Yeah, yeah, and they're in, like, full makeup and they look like normal, and I'm like, I when I did my trip, I didn't look like a real human being.
No,
I
of
didn't
course
feel
not.
like
You're
one. Like, yeah, and they're just there doing it easy breezy,
yeah,
like it's
like,
nothing.
if you're gonna drive, I don't know how many hours it is out to California, but, like, at least,
It's a lot.
over a day, put
To
on some sweatpants.
California?
Yeah, I don't
It's
know.
not like a week. Oh my god, and, like, actually, I think I did it in, like,
I'm gonna look
10
this up.
days, and even that was like, yeah, you need and you're just on the road. So, like, you really,
Nonstop.
like, you start to go crazy. Like, I felt like I was with my mom and it, like, got dark because 'cause you're just like, we're just
Got dark.
looking. Yeah, my mom was, like, kinda sick too, so she was, like, not feeling well, and,
Oh,
like,
jeez.
you just are you're just wheels to the pavement every day.
I will say, so I'm originally from New York, and when we moved from New York out here to Chicago,
Yeah.
like, about halfway through Pennsylvania, stuff does start to get pretty depressing, and, like,
Yeah.
once you get into, like, Ohio and Indiana, it is nothing but flat nothingness, and,
Yeah.
like,
Nothing exists.
we've driven out to, like, North Dakota and stuff, and, like, it does get, like, interesting there, but it is still just, like, hundreds of miles of, like, almost nothing, and, like,
Yeah.
to do it in that, like, tiny ass car, and, like, I know nothing about cars, so I can't say, like, what kind it was, but, like, it was, like, some sort of old, like
Fancy,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly. I'm still trying to
Yeah.
look up how far Los Angeles from LA is. It is the Googles. um,
Mm,
but anyway, that's taken forever. Um,
it's
I
too
was
yeah.
kind of surprised that, like, they completely skipped over New York to Chicago. Like,
Same.
41 hours, from New York. So, yeah, like, if you drove straight, 2 days, but if you're driving in a car where you're not allowed to eat or drink anything, you're stopping, like, every 2 or 3 hours at least to have some sort of snack.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Um, I just thought also I guess it just bugged me because I thought the road trip could be an interesting it's like the plot barely went anywhere, and the road
yep,
trip was this, like, huge opportunity to, like, develop the characters, like,
that's 100% what I thought was gonna
they're
happen.
in
Yep.
yeah, they're in the car, like, I thought maybe that's where they would start to fall in love, but, like, it was just like we also have to just talk about the tension between the 2 of them, Olivia and George?
George,
Is
yeah.
that yeah. So strange. Is this typical of Hallmark movies? Like, it just
It
was like
it
they were so
is.
uncomfortable with each other while they were supposed to be, like, falling in love.
So it's always like, oh, they're not getting along, but, like, this one had a real feeling of, like, Olivia was being a bit of an asshole, and, like, George was just, like, a flat out dick the most of the time, like,
It
insulting
was
her
so
town
strange.
and, like, yeah, it was
Yeah.
even when, and, not to jump all the way ahead, but obviously they get together at the end, I'm still like, I don't know how you guys got over that, like, I don't think I could get past how obnoxious the
But
other one
also,
was.
they were so annoyed with each other, and they
Yeah,
spent so much time holding in their feelings that they didn't even get to know each I was like, "You don't even know each other." You
exactly,
could
yeah,
you could have spent the road trip getting to know each other, and instead, you just rolled your eyes
yep.
at each other.
Well, that's a and that I 100% agree because, like, I was very jarred when, like, they leave for the trip and then all of a sudden they cut to Chicago dropping Tess off, and it's like, "Whoa," like, I thought Tess was, like, probably the most interesting character in this movie,
I know.
and 2,
Yeah.
like, I thought there would be some sort of dynamic of like, "Oh, seems like maybe you like him," type thing, but no, like, we just completely cut that out. We're in Chicago, and then we're kinda left with Olivia and George getting back in the car, and it's like, I still don't know either one of you really. Like,
No,
I know
yeah.
Olivia is, on the edge, and George seems like a prick, but it's like, "Alright, now I'm supposed to get on board?" And then,
Yeah.
again, like, we have one scene where they're, like, having a full-on conversation about the history of Valentine, Nebraska in, like, a bitter cold, like, gas station parking lot when they could easily just, like, walk and get in the car and talk about this. But, like, outside of that, that's all we really get of, like, the road trip, which I do feel like could have been a lot more fun if we had gotten more of that.
Yeah, it was like and listen, the road to love is not always easy, but it was like they were so cold to each other and then,
Yeah.
like, their hands would accidentally touch, you know?
Mhm.
Or it was like, yeah, there was just all those moments of like, "I hate you, I hate you, I hate you." And I just is that Hallmark and Lifetime movie
It
thing or
it is, but I feel like this movie was a really bad
Okay,
example of it because, like,
okay.
they were both fairly unlikable, and, like, even when they finally get to Valentine and, like, she
Yeah.
starts to kinda show him the ways of the town. First of all, I never quite grasped what the hell Hiya was. Like, they made a thing that, like, that's how everybody there greets them, but, like,
Oh,
they never really
I
explained why
missed
or what the
that.
hell was up. Oh, she rattled off some like, when she got there, she said "Hiya" to, like, whoever her friend was, and then there was, like, a brief, like, "Oh, yeah, we all say speak like that here," and it's like, "Well, why don't you do that back in New York? Like, why is that a thing that's just happening now?" Um,
Yeah, they
but
really tried to,
yeah.
like, romanticize a small town,
Yeah.
but then it
Well,
was like
that is Hallmark.
which a small towns can be romanticized, but they gave us nothing. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
there was no part it was like, there just wasn't it was a lack of substance overall, you know?
Um, so they get there, and the whole idea is that he's gonna continue on his way to LA and kinda do his thing, but then Big Red breaks down, which,
Of
again, this
course.
scene was bananas too, because like, he has kinda set up that he loves this car so much, but then he has, like, what I assume is, like, a 60-year-old car battery in there, and it's like, why aren't you taking better care of this thing that, you're worried about getting crumbs, but meanwhile you're like leaving like an ancient battery in there to like leak all over everything. Like
Yeah.
it felt very weird. Um
I mean,
and then
like,
yeah,
yeah. The writing was just everything just
it had
happened
something.
perfectly, right? Like, of course the car broke down. Of course he couldn't leave.
Well, I was curious like how they were going to get him to stay, right? Because obviously he's going to stay in
Obviously,
town
it
and
wasn't
fall
gonna
in
be
love with it. Like,
Olivia.
yeah. But I thought it was weird that like they romanticized this car the entire time with him, and then it turns out it just kind of breaks down. And then poor Ronald, the mechanic, shows up, and like I don't know what the fuck his deal was, but like he goes to jump it, but like fucks it up, and like the car like lights on fire, and
Also,
it's
was
like
that
what?
true? Like, can you really fuck up a car that easily?
Oh, yeah, yeah, you are not supposed to. So, for anyone listening, there's not many of you. You're pretty much when you jump a car, the car that is running, you hook up the black and red cables to. But then on the car that is not working, you hook up I think it's the red, and then the black one you ground on something else. You're not supposed to put them both together. And I get however he did it, like he pretty much he put the red on the black and the black on the red, whatever the hell he did. Like
He ruined
that
it.
actually, what little auto tech I took in high school, I do believe that was
Okay.
historically
Alright.
accurate.
Okay. Alright. Good to
um,
know.
so that's how he kind of gets stuck there. The car is old, so Ronald the mechanic tells him that like he won't be able to get anything for like a few days. But I do have a shipment of like junked cars coming in that like we can probably go through and maybe fix things up. That kind of falls by the wayside by like the next day when like George is in the local diner, like buying everybody milkshakes and stuff. Like we kind of
Yeah,
left the car being broken aside for like a good half hour, 45 minutes around like the middle of this.
but it's because he's like yeah, but he goes to the diner. The guy who helps with the car is yeah, there was I can't even remember because it wasn't but there was a moment where they're like, "Let's go to the diner. I bet Olivia's there." Like, they kind of went there because
Yeah.
they knew Olivia was there, and then he's, like, buying them like, he's kind of showing like, again, he's, like, showing off for Olivia instead of
He's
just being
kind of a
like
prick, right?
yeah, I just, like if he liked her, he should have just acted like he liked her, not, like, bought everybody milkshakes.
Well, it was yeah, I couldn't quite get the tone because they've kind of mentioned, and I don't even think we said like Olivia is back in Valentine helping her cousin, someone, Vanessa, I don't know.
Sister.
Get Was it sister?
I
I think
think so.
so. You might be right. um,
I think so.
helping her sister kind of prepare for the big Valentine's Day parade that happens obviously in Valentine, Nebraska. And Vanessa has a son, Mickey, and the father is off, I don't know, doing something, but like he ends up coming back. And then it's interesting because we get the dynamic of those two, but we don't really find out anything about the parents until like later in the movie. Like you kind of assume they're not there anymore, but like
Yeah,
it
no.
really wasn't mentioned for like a good 20 minutes after she had gotten home, which I felt kind of
N
like weird about.
no, and I literally wrote down, I was like, that was really it was like they just very casually they were, like, in casual conversation, and then the sister's like, "Do you ever just get sad that mom's not here to see
Oh my
all
God.
this?" And you're like,
Yeah.
"Oh." Like, I was just like, "Wait, what?"
Yeah, like the sister is so we get this history of like this woman is the one that always puts on like the Valentine's Day parade and her sister is taking it over for like the first time or something, but this woman is kind of, lurking around always watching to see like what
Oh,
she's fucking
yeah.
up or how she's doing it wrong and like yeah, at a certain point Vanessa just like snaps and is like I'm really stressed. Do you ever feel like all of this is for nothing because mom isn't here to see it? And it's like,
Yes.
oh boy.
Yes, yeah, that's how she does it. You're just like, "Whoa, okay, I guess we're going there right
Yeah.
now."
Not that you're, sad that she's not there to see it. 100% get that. It's all for nothing. Like
Yeah, and
Vanessa
just, like
dark.
yeah, there was just, like, a lot of unprocessed emotions coming out
Yeah.
throughout this movie, honestly. Like, I just kept getting
They
hit with, like, something. I was like, "Whoa, okay. Mom's
yeah,
dead.
yeah. It
Who knew?"
it get it gets yeah. So what's it? The sister's on like like the verge of like a total breakdown. Olivia is like feels like in denial about like her life, although she does kind of confide in Vanessa that like the art career is not going well, and they kind of comfort each other. George finds the like kind of sketchbook that
Right.
Olivia has brought along and like thinks it's amazing. There's like a weird conversation at the diner where like George is covering for her with Olivia's friends that like, oh yeah, she's doing really well and like has this
Yeah.
big show. Olivia gets pissed about that, which, kind of rightfully so. Like,
Yeah. I'd be just, like,
don't like,
annoyed,
yeah.
yeah.
I would too, and like, don't boost my ego, and like lie on something that can easily be discredited through Google. Like,
Well, and also,
don't tell me
like,
that I'm doing this. Yeah,
you don't, like, I mean, in a way, he was, like, exposing her insecurity
yeah,
to the like, what was she like, if he had been listening to her and, like, known that she was, like, insecure about it, like, the last thing she wants is to have to defend that to the public, which is a lot, like, to
yeah.
defend his lie to the public, like, it just was uncomfortable.
It was like, it was too much. Like, he
Yeah.
easily could have said, like, "Oh, I've seen her art, it's amazing, and, like, good things are coming." But no, he was like, "Oh, she's had big shows, she's, like, all over the place." It's like,
Yeah.
that I would be like, "Oh, I haven't done all those things. Now I'm even more depressed." So I kinda
Yeah,
get why Olivia was pissed about this whole thing.
and honestly, I feel like that was him, like, projecting. Okay, for everybody listening, I'm really into psychology, so I am, like, psychoanalyzing all this, but,
I'm
like
excited. Yes, get into this.
but he is kind of, like, projecting. I think from what little we know of his character, it is this bit of, like, I'm this shiny 40 under 40 person, but, like,
Yeah.
it's one of those things where it's like it's almost like his shell, his armor is like this, like, big fancy title, but underneath it, he's, like, not that happy, like, he kind of teases that out along the way, and in a way, he's, like,
Yeah.
projecting this, like, Olivia should present herself as a certain way to everyone, even
Just
if it
lie
is
about
a lie.
herself, like
Yeah, like, because that's what
yeah.
he does to his own self.
Well, it's interesting too because like George, he's on his way out. I don't know what his father's company is, but like he's pretty much going to take over and like that's kind of the setup. But then you're right, like a half an hour left in the movie, he starts saying like, "Oh, this isn't really what I want to do. It's just a job and whatever. I really want to do
He
what turns out to be like pretty much the exact same thing, but for like nonprofits or something, right? Like,
Yeah, or
so
like
the
I didn't really understand it totally, or like he wanted to take part of the as CCO, he wanted to take part of the company and turn it, or maybe invest in
yeah,
nonprofits or something like that. Or yeah,
exactly.
his line was, "I'm gonna follow my heart and give this company a soul." I was like, honestly,
Yeah.
there were a few quotes that I was like, people would buy that if it was on a t-shirt.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly. Cause it does seem like he's gonna take over the company. You could just do this. Like,
Yeah.
if you're running things, like, you can kinda, like, restructure things and do this however you want, but, like, he makes it very big that, like, "I don't want this to be my job, but I
Yeah.
do want it to be my job, just a little different."
Well, the whole thing is like, it's his father doesn't support whatever the
Yeah,
nonprofit venture was that we don't quite know. It was like he couldn't, if his dad didn't support him doing it, he couldn't do it.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. So,
Classic.
that's kind of where Olivia and George start to bond, right? Like, and I we kind of jumped back and I glossed over it, but like there is this scene in the diner where they have like these famous milkshakes and like George up until this point has kind of mocked Valentine and like not been on board, but then he tries this milkshake and like loses his shit in the middle of this diner and like starts buying it for everyone, which I don't know if you were looking at that milkshake. It did not move the entire time. He was like kind of thrashing about,
I mean,
um,
no offense,
which I
but
felt like uncomfortable. Yeah.
yeah, well, that's more like probably a low food stylist
Mm.
budget for the movie.
So they kind of like build this relationship and start to kind of see each other in a different light, as Olivia is helping Vanessa kind of set up for this big Valentine's Day parade. George is kind of wrestling with going out to LA or not, and then I kind of blacked out for the rest of the movie, so I'm going to need your
They
help here.
go to, oh god. They go to, like, the junkyard. They go to look at the car
Yeah,
parts, and that's when they have another moment.
the hands
They, like,
touch or something
accidentally,
ridiculous.
no, it's, like, their face, it's, like, they both, like, move, like, one of the tables, and their bodies just, like, meet, and their faces are just, like,
Oh.
perfectly right, and you're like, because it's
That's
just,
the
like,
cover. That's the cover of the
yeah, because,
poster.
like, God forbid a teenager watches this movie and thinks that's how things happen. It's not.
I mean, maybe it does in
I
Valentine,
know, maybe it
Nebraska.
happens for other people, maybe it just didn't happen for me, I don't know.
Well, did you stop in Valentine, Nebraska on the way out to
No,
LA? Because
I
that
never got sucked into the energy vortex of Valentine, Nebraska, because that was
I
powerful.
am like honestly, now that I've seen real pictures of Valentine, Nebraska, like this movie does, like, I get why Vanessa is so down. Like,
Honestly.
she's putting on a good face, but like, I think Vanessa might be right that it is all for nothing.
Well, and I mean, the parade is their Christmas, you know what I mean? That's all that town
Yeah.
has. It's Valentine, Nebraska. Valentine's Day is their New Year's, Christmas, like, it's everything for that town.
Mhm. Well, they did say that like Christmas is kind of like the kickoff or something, but like Valentine's Day really is like the big thing. And like
Which is honestly kind of fun.
I just had it was, but I had a lot of trouble like accepting it because like Valentine's Day can be on like a Wednesday, and it's like what the fuck? Like you're
Yeah.
not having a big parade in the middle of a Wednesday.
Yeah, and
Um,
I think, like, modern Valentine's Day in my mind, if it's just, like, I think it's great to have a day. I wish you'd get the day off to spend with loved ones,
mhm.
because that's, like, the
Yeah,
meaning of the holiday, but, like, go do that, like, go stay home. Like, if like, make it a real
yeah.
national holiday. Give us the day off to spend it with our loved
I
ones.
I support like a lot of people say this about Halloween as well. Like just make it on like the last
Yeah.
Saturday of October or like Valentine's Day, like the first or second
No,
Saturday
no, no,
of
no, no, no.
February.
We
Like,
should no, no, no. We should have them make it. I'm pretty sure America has less national holidays than other countries.
hmm,
And we should like
interesting.
things like that should be a day off. We should get the day off.
Yeah,
Give us the day off to
that's really
celebrate
sweet.
Halloween. Yeah.
It's a nice sentiment. Yeah.
Thank you.
Um, all right. So they kind of like start connecting and then we can kind of wrap this up at this point. Like, does Olivia end up staying in
I
Valentine? I
know.
assume so. George, like, how do
How
we
does it
end this thing?
end? Honestly, it's a
Did
blur
she
for me
leave?
too because the the old lady who is, or I don't even know if she's that old. She's older. Who's not in support of the parade
Yeah.
gives.
Well, she's pissed off because like the float is going to be like on top of a car, and apparently that's not like
So
tradition. And like,
she tells George he can take a part out of the car that's supposed to be used in the float. So he fixes the
oh,
car using that
but
piece,
sabotages the
and that
parade.
sabotages the parade. And I honestly don't know how we get to
It's fine. I'm gonna guess that Big Red, the car, pulls the float, and
yeah.
Olivia ends up staying in Nebraska, and
Well,
like so does George for some reason.
the final scene is George asking Olivia, "Will you be my Valentine?" Yeah, like,
Oh,
it just
how do you feel?
ends with a kiss.
Let me jump back because Mickey, Vanessa's kid, at one point says, "My dad's coming home tomorrow, and he's gonna be my Valentine because I love him." I'm always creeped out by kids having Valentines, or I don't like when parents take pictures of like their two kids together and say like they're Valentines, or like
Interesting.
a mom says their son is the Valentine. Because I always think like Valentine's Day is like romance and stuff, and it's like, so do you want to like make out with your kid? Is this what you're saying? Like,
I
yeah,
yeah,
let
well,
it out.
I know, I'm like, there's different points to make, but, I mean, initially, I I I'm a lover, so
Yeah.
I loved being in classrooms and everybody bringing in Valentine's Day cards for everyone. Like, I
Mm,
thought that was really nice, and to, like, pick out what Valentine, like,
mhm.
and I'm an art director, so, like, but, like, choosing your design that you wanted to give the rest of your classmates and, like,
Oh, I never thought that much, yeah.
well, I
But
told
did you like
you.
so you bought the
No,
box?
I just mean,
Like,
like,
I
you
would
go to the
pick out the
store,
Valentine's.
and you just
Yep.
go to the store, and
Oh,
I'm like,
yeah.
"Oh my god, I like the one with, like, the pink flowers," or, like, whatever, and, like, the boys buy, like, the, like, Star Wars Valentine, like, yeah, like,
Transformers
I'm just
and
saying
some
it's, like,
bullshit, yeah.
it's a bit of, like, self-expression that's, like, nice, and I like the sentimentality
Mhm.
of which, again, I mean, I actually am really glad you gave everybody the warning at the beginning of this episode because I am all over the place, and I'm really into, like, energy and things like that, and I do think
Mhm.
platonic relationships, partnerships, whatever, are, like, on the rise. Like, I think people are I'm totally we're not even talking about the movie anymore, I'm really sorry, but it's just, like,
No, 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 this is
it's really but, like, platonic friendships are you can have the support and growth of a romantic partnership without the pressure of, like, "We are bonded to each
hmm,
other." It's just like, "Hey, like, you support me, I support you, like, we hang out now and then, like, whatever," and, like, there's a sense of ease to it that I think everybody's just, like, yearning for.
that's
Yeah, so I
nice.
guess, like, and that's how I actually I was gonna send out Valentine's Day cards to everybody. I always send out, I did New Year's Day cards this year, like, and I hand make them
Mhm.
and mail them to everybody. I was supposed to do them for Valentine's Day, but I was a little depressed this year. I'm still
Oh,
gonna
well,
send the
yeah, that's
cards, but
understandable.
it's gonna come in, like, March. But I don't know, sharing love is just cute, especially when there's not pressure. Like, it's just like, "Here's a handwritten card."
That's very
Yeah.
nice. Did you so when you would go to the store and buy your, like, My Little Pony whatever pack, would you then, as you're, like, filling these out, be like, "Oh, this design, this is definitely for, like, Susan," and,
No.
like, "This
Well,
one." Alright.
honestly, I probably did, but I don't remember. I've always been very particular, about things, so
Mhm.
I I don't doubt that my brain was like, "Oh, here, there," but I don't
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
remember.
I d
It was a long
I
time
don't
ago,
remember do
Joe.
I do remember specifically being like, "Alright, this one says, like, love on it. I'm definitely not giving it to, like,
Yeah.
this person."
Okay,
Like,
yeah.
I appreciate that, though. Like, it's actually very sweet what you just kind of, like, laid out. And, like, it's a nice way to, like, just completely get away from me saying that this boy wanted his dad to be his boyfriend or something. Like, you really turn that around and, like, I'm impressed. Like, I can hear Leslie, my wife, being like, "Good for
Oh my
her."
god,
Uh,
thanks.
where the fuck
I
were we?
don't
I don't
know.
even remember. Anyway, they get together at the end, I
Yeah.
assume, and let's
They
just go
become
with
she
that.
says yes. She says, "Yes, I will be your Valentine."
Yeah, obviously. I mean, what else does she have going for
I
her?
mean, what do either of them have going for I mean, they really put both of those characters just, like, at their bottom, you know? There was nowhere to
Mhm.
go but
Well,
together.
to be fair, his bottom is, like, still going out and, like, running
Yeah,
some what we assume is, like,
but
extremely successful
he's
company,
not
so, like,
happy doing that.
he should be.
Yeah. He was happy that he
Um,
got to buy everybody milkshakes.
I know, he really, like, lost it, doing that. Like, it was very over the top. Like, I think he got up on the
No,
counter or
but I
something.
remember that's what's oh, yeah, this is at we I don't think you're watching, at the junkyard park, that's what, like, segues him into, like, the nonprofit thing. Like, she's like, "What do you
Yeah,
like about"
I
yeah,
did see
she's like,
that,
"What do
yeah.
you like about your job?" He's like, "Not much," and she's like, "Well, you seem to really
Nothing.
like to hand out the milkshakes," and he's like, "You
Yeah,
know what?
exactly.
I
Like
do wanna get into nonprofits." Like, "What?"
I'd say, like, being an obnoxious asshole at this diner
Yeah.
and then buying everybody milkshakes was like, "This is what I wanna
Yeah.
do for the rest of my life."
You know what? I do wanna solve world hunger.
Yeah, yeah, I really like buying those milkshakes. I think I'm gonna go to, like, underdeveloped countries and buy them
Oh, yeah.
milkshakes.
Yeah, there were just a lot of hard
Um,
turns in the movie.
yeah, I'm still a little nervous about Vanessa, but I think things are gonna work out. Uh, anything we missed or anything else you had on your list that you wanna discuss about this movie? Otherwise, we can kinda wrap things up.
No, I just
Yeah,
no, I mean, my one thing I'm interested to hear your perspective because I just was like I was kind of thinking like, what no, okay, but seriously, like, Hallmark and Lifetime is such a specific genre of movie, like, you know what you're gonna get every single time,
exactly.
but what is it? Like, is it the writing? Is it the actors? Is it the directors? Like, what?
Uh, I should say, like, this movie I guess let's kinda go, like, would you recommend
Oh,
this?
okay,
Yes or
yeah.
no? Like, and then I think that's a good way to kinda segue into, like, the bigger discussion.
Who's asking me if I would recommend this? Or, like,
Anyone, like,
absolutely not.
if, yeah, I wouldn't either. Okay, so I know and I think that's totally fair, and, like, that's I think we can kinda talk about Hallmark movies in that way because, like, this one feels and I get it, a lot of times they're cheesy and, people goof on them, but there are ones where I do think have legitimate, like, really
Okay.
interesting stories and, like, especially in the last few years have kind of, like, ventured outside of kind of the normal meet a guy, give up everything to like stay in his hometown. And like I feel like we talk about this on like every episode, but like Elise Murray has been on a few times and like every time a bell rings is one that she's done and a couple others. And I do think they kind of break the traditional
Okay.
mold. And Hallmark in the last few years has really worked on that as well. So like a lot of them do end where like the couples don't end up together
Yeah.
or like the main woman is just happy and like that's the end. So this one though just felt very I didn't think the George and Olivia had any sort of chemistry.
No.
Like even as they were kind of falling in love, quote unquote, I just didn't feel it. And like maybe that's why. And I would be really interested to find out like if this was originally supposed to be a Christmas movie because maybe that's why this was kind of moved to like February and like let's just make it a Valentine's one and like,
Maybe.
you know,
And,
kind
you
of go from
know,
there.
what was strange about it was like, you say they didn't have chemistry, but it's like they didn't have compatibility. Like, there
Yeah,
was
exactly.
something
Yeah.
pulling them towards each other, but they didn't like each other.
Exactly. Yeah. They never seem to like actually
Yeah,
enjoy
I
each other's
wrote
company,
down
which is what I had
yeah, I
trouble
wrote
getting
down
over.
this was my, like, closing thing, my wrap up. It took an hour and a half for the main characters to just admit they liked each other. That was the entire concept of the
Yeah.
movie. WTF.
Yeah. Do you think they're still together after, like, the credits rolled and, like,
In a weird way,
Valentine, Nebraska 6 months
yeah,
later?
because they both seemed extremely, like,
Yeah,
desperate's such a mean word, but there was something of, like,
just feeding off
yeah,
each
yeah,
other.
there was just something about them. I
They
just can't
needed
see them
something.
with anybody else, in a way.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, I don't see them I would like to not see them with anyone else
Yeah,
too, I agree.
stick
Uh,
to each other.
alright, so you're happily ever after. Who from this illustrious cast do you kinda think like, "Hey, I could spend the rest of my
Definitely
life
the
with this person?"
friend or the roommate. What was her name?
Yeah. Yeah,
Tess.
Tess, yeah. I mean, it
Or,
seems like kind of the
like,
obvious choice, like, she's in
yeah,
Chicago, she's
yeah,
doing well. She literally at one point says, "I'm getting in trouble because I have what they call resting happy face," and it's like, who
I
doesn't wanna be
know.
around that and just, like, feel good all the time? Like,
I
yeah,
would, and
Tess
the
is
only
for
other
sure
one
the
would be,
winner
like,
there.
maybe that fancy art buyer, cause like, she just but she was kind of a
Mm,
grouch, she was definitely bitchy, but, like, I mean, she seemed like,
but
"Oh, yeah, you know what? No, definitely the roommate."
I yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying about the art buyer, but I also get that, like, she's at this event and out of nowhere, like, the person that's about to spill soup on me is trying to show me their art, and it's like, "What the
I
fuck?" Like, this is
know.
not the time or the place, like, can I just relax for a second?
It's true.
Um, so that's welcome to Valentine, 2 thumbs down, unfortunately, but, like, Tess, if we could see a
Yes.
spinoff where, like, Tess and we get to see what's going on with her in Chicago,
'Cause
like, I
I
would
think
watch the hell
she'll
out of that.
actually end up in true love. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like she's gonna find a
Oh,
husband that,
100%.
or husband or wife that she loves. Like, that girl's she's gonna fall
Yeah.
in love for real, unlike Olivia and George.
Yeah, people like Tess,
They're
they're
gonna
gonna find their
find
way.
their
God
way.
bless her.
Hell yeah.
Um, all right, so that's the movie. Instagram and Twitter, small and failing. Every week we post up. You can send in questions. We got a couple this week. None of them have anything to do with this movie. Oh, the first one. Favorite breakfast food. Michelle, what is your like when you wake up in the morning, your breakfast if your go-to, what do
Okay,
you go with?
I'm just like a huge toast gal.
Mm,
I get like sourdough toast. And I
oh,
do cream cheese, and then I'll just kinda, like, get blackberries and, like, mush them a little bit and put them on top, and then I've been getting kinda
oh,
fancy with, like, the toppings. I'll, like, drip a little bit of olive oil and then sprinkle a little black pepper. I don't know, it just came
that
to me
does
one day,
sound
and they're
nice.
all, like, ingredients you have in your house.
Have you speaking of sourdough, have you like in the pandemic
Never
and
made it.
now, when you got
No.
some free time,
No.
now you might look into it. It's a lot of fun. It's very like that was
True.
my like every other like middle-aged NPR listener. I started a
Hell
sourdough
yeah.
starter like 3 months into the pandemic and Joseph Gordon-Levitt is his name and he'll be 3
What does
in
that
March and
mean
I'm very excited.
exactly? What's a sourdough starter?
So
Like,
so instead of using yeast to make
oh.
the sourdough, you use the starter. And pretty much what it is you just mix like mine is whole wheat and white flour equal parts mixed together with equal parts water and you just like feed it every day
Oh,
like and like you do that and then the next day you take like a little bit of that and then mix it again with the same amounts of water and flour and then every day you just keep feeding it and flour is like actually alive. That's why they say like don't eat it, if you're not going to bake it. You're not supposed to eat like raw flour
wow.
because there's like I don't know things in there and eventually those start to grow and like feed off of the flour. So instead of using yeast, you use a little bit of that sour,
Wow.
the starter, and that's what like gives it its sour flavor also, and like that's what like makes it rise and do all
But
that
you said
things like. So yeah, it's
yours is
very
3
like
years
what's
old?
it's 3 years old, yeah, like, and I so you have to, like, feed it twice a day or, like, at least every day as it's getting going, but, like, now I'll feed it on Wednesday, and then if I'm gonna bake that week, like, on a Friday, I'll keep it out and feed it every day. Otherwise, I'll just feed it on Wednesday, let it do a
I
thing, and put
love
it back in,
this.
and then they're super hard to
Oh,
kill also,
like
you
a
know like, I've gone on vacation and left mine in the fridge for, like, 3 weeks, and it's totally fine when you get back, so yeah. It's
No, but
something.
okay, but
It's
are you
something.
baking bread too, or is it just you're just keeping it alive? Okay. So you just,
Yeah.
like, pull from it.
You can just keep it
Oh,
alive. Yeah. So like I think when I make the sourdough, use like literally like a teaspoon. And then put it with like all the ingredients and then it pretty much you have to like let it sit for like it's almost like 4 or 5 hours and like you fold it every once in a while, but like it kind of does its thing. And then when it's almost ready to bake, you can either like put it in the fridge for overnight
okay.
or like
Yeah.
leave it on the counter where it's warm for like 3 or 4 hours. And the longer you let it go, as long as the starter still has like flour to eat, it'll just keep like making it like that much
That
more
is
sour.
wild.
It's all
Yeah. I'm
very
gonna look
interesting.
into that. I've been doing,
Yeah.
yeah, actually, I do wanna say this on your podcast because I've been making this tea that I think is actually so good for
Mhm.
you. It's just I put
Yeah.
turmeric, black pepper, because those are
Mhm.
anti-inflammatory, ginger powder. I put whole garlic cloves in there. You kinda put all of this in there, you don't
Mhm.
taste it all. I put lemon and I put honey, and I drink that every morning, and it's just this, like, I think inflammation is, like, the root of I mean, a lot of the foods and stuff, like, cause inflammation, so it's just, like, a nice way to start the day with, like, all
Mhm.
of the that it's like a little mixture of ingredients that are just really good for you. So everybody drink it.
Huh. Is there actual tea in
Well,
there
you're,
also,
like,
or is
making the
that kind
tea
of
with the
like your like
turmeric, the ginger. Yeah. The
got it.
black pepper is just they say you need that to activate the turmeric, if I'm saying that right.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Yeah.
very interesting. Also, I gotta turn this off. Um, my breakfast of choice
Dude,
waffles. I just like
waffles are
waffles.
so good.
It's a
I know.
big fan. All right, and then the last one was that route they took just the worst way to go in February? Like, yeah, I guess driving through like the Midwest and then through Chicago, like that's going to be a wide awake nightmare in February. So yes,
Yeah,
yes, it
and where
probably
was, like,
was.
all the snow and, like, breakdowns? I don't know. Yeah.
Well, that's another thing about a lot of these movies is like it'll be take place in like Minnesota or someplace and like the middle of December, but they're all walking around
Yeah.
in like light jackets, and it's
Yeah.
like, oh, that doesn't make any sense. Uh, anyway, so Twitter and Instagram, Small and Failing. On Facebook, Small Town Failing Podcast. Cameo, if you're looking for a gift for a loved one, Small
Oh,
Town
yeah.
Failing on there. iTunes and Spotify, thanks to everybody who's reviewed there. Small Town Failing Podcast at gmail.com if you want to send an email. Michelle, where
You
can people find your
Yeah,
world?
just put well, Michelle Liuzzo, Liuzzo, at pretty much anything. Just put my name in, you'll find me.
Hmm. Is Liuzzo? I'm saying it wrong already, but like, is that a common name or because Charnews? If you meet another Charnews in America, we're related. Like, there's like
There's
10 of
we've
us,
looked
maybe.
up on Facebook, there's, like, a few other Liuzzos. There was a Viola Liuzzo who actually,
Hmm.
played a big small role in the oh my god, civil rights war? Oh
Oh,
my god,
wow.
I'm so bad at history. The Civil War, yeah.
Civil War. We'll cut this out.
Look, anyway, but we're not
But I'm
related, yeah. You can my mom's last name is Madonia,
all
and
right.
if you find Madonias in Italy, we're probably related to them. Yeah.
That's the awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for putting up with this. I felt like such a creeper even like messaging you
Oh
to say
my
like, "Hey, do you want to
god,
do
it
this?"
was so nice of you because I have nothing else to do.
Well, perfect. We'll get
Oh
you
my
and Caitlin on
god.
like an episode and like that'll be
Yeah.
a blast. Do you know who else has been on his do you know Logan Cummings? Do you remember him from like our working? Maybe not. It's fine. I don't you
No,
two may
yeah.
not have bumped into each other.
This is
He's
so
very
fun.
nice though.
I'm launching my
But yeah.
podcast soon. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. It's gonna be called Talk About Nothing. I don't know if you might have to cut this part out. Well, you could keep it in, but it's called Talk About Nothing. It's only on Apple
yeah, whatever.
now. And the first episode
Mhm.
is it's actually a recording of me and my psychic from June. And it was never
What?
intended to be put on air, but I re-listened to it and I just think it's like a really interesting conversation. So we'll see how it goes.
I'm very excited about this. I
Yeah,
am
you should
100%
check
gonna
it out.
listen. Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you,
Thank you.
Michelle. I do appreciate it. Thank you for wasting an hour to do this. And yeah, I don't know what we're doing next time,
This
but
was
we'll
amazing.
figure it out
Yeah.
and there'll be a thing. And I appreciate it. All right, everybody. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time. All right, bye.